So I started off in TV. And what I used to do was I worked as a desk editor. So I would do all the behind the scenes stuff, like all the text you see on screen, planning out shows, working on primetime shows, all of that. The pandemic hit, so I moved back home. And that's also the time that Reels had launched. I think I had about 80,000 subscribers on YouTube, and I was making like 4,000 rupees a month, which is very less money. Like, you can't support yourself that way. Infotainment is a very huge sector right now in content creation. Like, I think particularly the finance sector is doing really well, because you see a lot of finance influencers making these funny skits and giving funny scenarios, but also teaching you a value of maybe investing in this, or doing a certain sort of certain financial practices in your life that would help you out.
Hey everyone, I'm thrilled to be joined today by one of the most fun and relatable content creators, Satshya Tharien, who has over 400,000 followers across her YouTube and Instagram channels. Satshya, with her minute observation skills and societal awareness, brings a range of topics to her audience in the most fun and educational way. Today, I sit down with her to know more about her journey and dig deeper into content creation. Welcome, Satshya. Welcome to Switching Gears.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
It's my pleasure, and really looking forward to the conversation. I know you recently moved to Singapore, and you have a very good minute observation. So would love to start with, like, what are some of your initial observations about Singapore?
So I've been in Singapore for about 3 months now, and I find it to be a very organized city and very clean, as most people would notice when they first come. But I think more than anything, like, as a woman, I feel extremely safe here. At any point of the night, you can be out, nobody's looking at you, people treat each other very respectfully here. I really like that. And of course, the food, like the kind of food that you have in Singapore is amazing, because you have not only things that are popular in Singapore, like chili crab and kaya toast and things like that, but you also have such food from all over the world that's so easily accessible and available that for a foodie like me, it's paradise.
Amazing. And I was seeing one of your videos about no intervals in the movies.
Yeah.
That indeed was my first observation as well.
Yeah.
Like, especially for the Indian movies, which tend to be 2.5, 3 hours.
Yeah.
That can be troubling.
It's you're so used to watching movies where there's a gap in between, where you can go get some popcorn, drink something, go to the washroom, come back. And for me, it was a shock when I was watching the movie. I'm like, when is the interval happening? And I really had to go to the bathroom, where it was such a struggle. But now that I know, I'm well prepared in advance.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. Awesome. So let's start with, as we kind of get into the question segment, would love to start with your career journey, Satshya. Like, our viewers would be keen to know how did you start your career? And when did you move into content creation, and what drove you into it?
So I started off as a journalist. I was very dead set on being a journalist when I was in college. And that was my clear goal, that I am going to become a journalist. So I started off in TV. And what I used to do was I worked as a desk editor. So I would do all the behind the scenes stuff, like all the text you see on screen, planning out shows, working on primetime shows, all of that. And a little bit here and there, I would do a bit of reporting and a bit of anchoring. And I had a weekly show called Hooked, where I would talk about like pop culture moments of the week. But it was a very small segment. It was just 3 minutes. But by and large, that was the only on-camera thing that I did. So I had done all of the behind the scenes, learning about how TV works, production works, all of that. And then I did that for about 2 years. Then I wanted to explore the digital space. So I moved to the digital side of things. And it was a whole different ball game because although I had worked in news for 2 years already, digital is a whole different platform. You learn so many more things about, you write differently for digital, even if it's for videos. You present differently on digital. You learn about websites, SEOs, all of those things, which I had not learned in TV. So for me, it was very exciting that I was learning all these new things while also taking the skills that I learned from TV. So I did that again for about 2.5 years. And then that's when the pandemic hit. So I moved back home. And that's also the time that Reels had launched. So here I had a bit more time on my hands. I was spending time with my family. I was hearing everybody speak Malayalam around me. So it also made me get a few ideas about, these are these cool, interesting things in Malayalam or in Hindi, on different languages that I wanted to explore and just share it. I was just making videos for my friends. So because Reels was there, I just tried out a couple of videos and some of them clicked. And then it reached people who want my friends. And so people were like, can you send us more? Like, can you do more of this series? We need more of these videos. So I said, okay, let me try out making more of these. So along with my work, every day I would take about half an hour to just quickly script, film, edit, and put it out. And I kept doing this and I realized that this is growing really well. I have a good opportunity here, but I didn't want to quit a 9 to 5, like a stable job, to enter this field immediately. Like, that was very scary to me. So I switched to an edtech field where I was working as a content strategist for them. It was a startup. So I had a little more flexibility in terms of my time. So I could devote a little more time to content creation. So I did that for about a year, and then I realized that, okay, content creation is really taking off. And I think if I had a little more time, I could maybe expand not just from Instagram, but also to YouTube, probably do a podcast as well. And for me to do all of these things, I may need to take this full time. So that's when, after I think about 5-6 years of doing a 9 to 5, that's when I switched to content creation full time.
Got it. And as you move from, let's say, part-time as a hobby on the side of your job into full-time, I would imagine it's a gigantic task, especially when you do it as a solopreneur. Yeah. Like, you are the producer, you are the director, actor, editor, and then the marketeer. Yeah. So how does it all work? For example, if you take some of your long format videos on YouTube, for example, what level of planning goes into it? Like, how do you typically approach any episode of yours?
So when it comes to YouTube, I have a list of topics that I'd like to cover, and I've limited myself to releasing one video a week. With YouTube, it takes a lot more time to film, to edit, and to release it. Whereas with Reels, since it's just 30 seconds, 45 seconds, you can put one out every day if you have enough ideas. So I think the main approach to this would be have a list of ideas, because people think that the production, editing, etc. is the hardest part. No, that you can do if you have time. But getting ideas and having a clear vision of what you want to do, that takes the most amount of time. So once you have that ready, then you can allot the kind of time that you need for creating content. So if it would be, for example, a YouTube video, and I had this particular idea in mind, so I would film it probably today. I know I would need about 2 days to edit it, and then I could plan the release on the 3rd day. So that's how I would plan it out.
Got it. And given there are plethora of channels nowadays, so how do generally, as a content creator, how do you focus on that these are the channels where I will focus on, right? For example, YouTube, Instagram, and now in Singapore there is also TikTok, which is available, right? So that's going to be another channel you would need to consider. Yeah. So just curious, do you try to focus on certain channels, or do you have to be on all the channels? And if so, how does the approach varies?
Yeah. So that is very challenging, because you have this pressure to be present on every social media platform. What worked for me was to first concentrate on one platform and do it well enough that I could get really fast at it. And it kind of became automated in terms of how I approached it. So earlier, when I was making Reels, if it took me 1.5 hours, now I can make it in 15 minutes because I have that experience and that practice of doing it. And because I was able to shorten that time, not only can I repost my short form videos from Instagram to YouTube Shorts to TikTok, for example, that also frees time for me to work on my YouTube. So once I feel like I have enough, Instagram is going well enough, then I can concentrate on YouTube. Because if you try to do multiple things at the same time, like you want to do short form content, long form content, a podcast as well, managing time becomes very, very difficult, especially if you're doing everything yourself. So I would say first focus on one platform, build your following on it, then shift your focus to another platform where you can also cross promote your content across both platforms. So because I have an audience on Instagram, I'm able to build out my YouTube as well, because I post about my YouTube on my Instagram. So that helps.
Got it. Got it. And like you had your background into journalism, like you said, you worked on different aspects of the production process. So if somebody is looking to build their career into digital content creation, what would you say? What are the must-have skills that one should build?
I think the first thing you need to have is confidence, because a lot of people look at it like, okay, I don't have a camera or I don't have this equipment, so I can't start. No, you just need your phone. You don't even need anything else. You just need your phone and the confidence to face camera, put your face to the camera and try it out. So in terms of skills, soft skills, you would need confidence, you would need creativity, and definitely consistency. Because confidence and creativity can only take you so far. It can be your launching pad to success. But unless you're putting out videos every single day or every alternate day, you cannot build your audience on these platforms. Other than that, for in a video space, skills that are very useful are video editing. Now you have all of these softwares that you can do it just on your phone. Like Instagram, for example, it has an inbuilt video editing software within Reels. So it's very, very easy to use. You don't need any special training to do it. But for things like YouTube and podcast, you would need to know editing if you want to up your game with animation and things like that. Video editing works. Apart from that, also basic knowledge of how to set up your camera, like looking at lighting, those things also work.
Got it. It indeed sounds pretty daunting task, like you said. One needs to be very consistent.
Yeah.
If it's short format, maybe every other day you need to prepare some content. So that's indeed an incredible effort that you are putting in, and no wonder why you are within those top 1% of the creators who actually are able to make money out of the content creation and build it as a career beyond the hobby.
Yeah, it does. It is a difficult career, honestly, because in the first year and a half, when you're working as a content creator, you don't make any money. It's only after you cross a certain threshold. So when you start off, your main focus shouldn't be money, because then you can get discouraged very easily. But if your focus is just on building your audience, building yourself as a brand, then you'll be on the fast track to success.
Makes sense. And for all the aspiring digital content creators, like you brought the topic of that don't start with money, but eventually money will flow in. Yeah. I think it would be helpful to know what are typically the monetization channels for a content creator.
So it depends on the platform that you're creating on. When you're on YouTube, it's far easier because the platform pays you for your content, basically the ads that play on your content. But then again, you need to meet a minimum threshold of 10,000 watch hours and 1,000 subscribers. So until you build yourself to that level, there's no money coming in. But once you do, money does come in. But if you're an Indian creator, you don't get paid as much. So for example, I think I had about 80,000 subscribers on YouTube, and I was making like 4,000 rupees a month, which is very less money. Like you can't support yourself that way. But then last month or so, my channel kind of blew up. So now I have about around 150k subscribers, and this month I think I'm making about 30,000 rupees. So it's helpful because it's kind of passive income, because people discover your older content and that's when watch hours keep building up. However, the build up to that is really slow. Like it takes a really long time. I've been on YouTube since 20 2016, I wasn't very consistent then, so I wasn't posting much. But in the last year, I was very regular, I was very consistent, posting regularly. So now it's sort of built up. When it comes to Instagram, the platform doesn't pay you at all. So there you are dependent on brands. So you might have videos with like 10 million views, but you don't get a single rupee. However, if you work with brands, then they give you a brief and say, okay, we have this chewing gum brand and we want you to make a video on it on this concept. So then you would negotiate with them on the commercials that you would have, and that would largely depend on the number of followers you have, the kind of engagement rate you have, because marketers are also looking at what are the kind of returns that they can get, what's your audience reach, etc. So here numbers come into value a lot because they can see exactly what your average reach is, average views is, and so that's how they calculate what your costs could be. So on Instagram, I would say, again, like I think once you cross 10,000 followers, that's when you can sort of, brands would reach out to you and say, hey, let's collaborate.
Got it. And consistency, one is about the frequency at which you put the content. Other is also about the themes that you bring in, right? In your context, like you have picked as infotainment, right? So infotainment is a segment but still pretty vast, but what I have noticed is you try to bring everything back into that infotainment segment. Information, at the same time it's entertainment, fun, right? So one, curious, how did you land on this specific segment? Was it more of a discovery process? Or is it more of your own personality that gets reflected into the content?
I think a bit of both, because when I started out making videos, it was just based on my own experiences of living in another city and finding these language differences that we had, and how in some situations it could be funny. Like, for example, chumma in Malayalam means simply, but chumma in Hindi means kiss, right? So it's been taking experiences from my personal life and just putting it out there. So it's informative in the sense that you would learn the meaning of these two words in two different languages. And it's comedic in the way that people would just laugh and be like, oh, haha, funny, confusion. But what I found through a discovery process is people learn through comedy, or they like learning through comedy. And in any category that you would do, even if you did a cooking show, but if you included comedy in it, people would be more likely to watch it. So I think infotainment is a very huge sector right now in content creation. Like, I think particularly the finance sector is doing really well, because you see a lot of finance influencers making these funny skits and giving funny scenarios, but also teaching you a value of maybe investing in this, or doing a certain sort of certain financial practices in your life that would help you out. So ultimately, when someone is scrolling on the internet or scrolling on social media, they want to be entertained, yes, but they also don't want to feel like they are wasting their time online. Like, you want to feel like you're learning something. So that's ultimately what I try to provide as well.
Got it. And how much of the role analytics play in understanding as a creator, what does your audience like? What do they don't like? I believe these channels nowadays give a lot of analytics. Sometimes it can be overwhelming as well. But just curious, how do you employ analytics in staying relevant to your audience and continuing to reinvent yourself?
Yeah, I think analytics are amazing if you would take them in the right light and the right perspective, because as creators, because you put so much of yourself into your content, looking at the numbers can be daunting, because when you put out a video and it doesn't do the numbers that you thought it would, then you feel very personally deflated, because you think, okay, people don't like me, or people don't think I'm funny, because you put so much of yourself in your work, right? But with time, you realize to sort of dissociate you, the person, versus you, the creator, and then to objectively look at, okay, what is working. So in terms of analytics, I would say one thing that really helps is knowing what time your audience is most active, because that's when you know that that's the time you have to post your content, because that's when most people will engage engage with it. So if you're going to be posting stuff at 3 a.m. when everyone's asleep, then no one's going to see it on their feeds the next day, right? So you lose your reach. The second thing would be knowing location. Like, this is very helpful to know the location of where your audience is watching it from. From a micro perspective, for me, when I know that my audience is, say, for example, from Bangalore or Chennai, I would make more content related to that, because more people from there are watching. They can relate to my content more. And also, for a lot of people, knowing the gender differences also helps, because then they can make specific content related to those genders. So another thing that analytics helps you with is also seeing the trend in terms of what kind of videos have the most shares, what kind of videos have the most saves, because all of those things add up to your engagement rate, which tells the algorithm that people are engaging with your content, and therefore they'll show it more. So infotainment stuff works, recommendation works, because these have very high value in terms of saves and shares. Comedy works because most people are more likely to share it with other people then. So all of these numbers really help inform what kind of content you should be making. And it's great because I don't think in any other field you get this in-depth kind of analytics that you can use to, shape what kind of work you're going to do forward.
That makes absolute sense. And like you said, there are pros and cons of both. One can very easily get very demotivated by looking at the numbers. But I love the fact how you said you have to disassociate yourself, like as a person versus a creator, so that you can make the most out of analytics. That's superb.
It takes a long road to there, though. Like, when you first start, it feels extremely demotivating if you maybe lose followers, even if you've been posting every day, even if you've been doing the same kind of content, but you're still not seeing that growth that you thought you would. Then it feels like, okay, what am I doing wrong? Maybe I should just give up. Maybe the algorithm hates me, is what everyone goes through. But when you can be more objective about it, look at maybe you're doing the same kind of content every single day. That's why it's not working. Maybe you need to try something new to attract a new demographic. So analytics also helps you become more experimental, I feel, with your work, as long as you're not scared to try new things.
Got it. And reflecting on your journey so far, like you started in 2015 from YouTube, and what we have seen is over the years, first there was a long format content, then Instagram, and moreover TikTok, they all brought the short format content. So reflecting on their journey and from your experience, what do you think in the next 3 to 4 years, what type of content do you see flourishing, be it in terms of the theme of the content or the content format?
I think educational content is going to have a really long shelf life, because everyone is looking to learn something new, to upskill and to improve themselves. In terms of the format, I think AR is going to be huge. I don't see too many people using it yet, but it's going to be interesting to see, for example, like if creators usually had in-person meet and greets or meetups. What if you could do an online kind of meetup where you have your, in Sims, you have your virtual avatars, right? Like, what if you could do that, but then connect with your fans from around the world and have a conversation with them? That would be fun. Also, now people are using a combination of like Discord and online games, etc., to interact with their followers, play games with their followers, etc. So for creators, it's not just about creating content, it's also about building a community, and that's how you grow. So as a creator, I would love to see more tools which would help me connect to my audience better in different ways, and also to provide some more value to them, and for me to know how I can provide value to them. And in terms of content, it's also interesting to see how high level the production is going now. Like, some content creators have an entire setup, like you have a great setup here, and then they have very professional cameras, lighting, all of that. They take it very, very seriously. So it's going to be interesting to see how people who are solopreneurs, like you put it, how they are building a business and a production house by themselves to provide very, very high quality content.
Makes sense. That's great. So to kind of the way I'm also interpreting, right, as I was listening to you, initially when these platforms came, they kind of set a level playing field, wherein they lowered the bar to enter. But it also means now the onus is on the creators to differentiate, to differentiate, be it in terms of the technology or the setup, how they do, the themes, the ideas they choose, right? And then how do they present that content? So that's very inspirational and very interesting.
Yeah. And I think the main, like, I see so much potential for creators. Like, anybody can be a creator. You have a skill you're good at, or you're funny, or you are artistic. There's something that everyone can showcase. And you don't need very high-tech equipment to start. Like, when I started, I just had my phone. I didn't have a tripod also. I just used to keep it on my windowsill during daylight and just record. And that's it, right? Now I have like a tripod, I have a light, I've started my podcast, so I have like a mic and all of that set up. But when you start off, you don't need all of that. You just need confidence, creativity, and the belief in yourself that, okay, I'm going to make this work. Like, at least give yourself a timeline of 30 days. For 30 days, I'm going to do this non-stop. If it works, great. If it doesn't, I've at least learned something through this process. And especially for young people, if they are creating content while in college themselves, they are actually building a portfolio of what they can do. So even in terms of, say, for example, someone has a YouTube channel where they're teaching people how to code. Now, when they go for an interview, they're going to set themselves apart as a candidate who not only knows what they do, but they are creative and outgoing enough to teach other people. They have this business sense of how social media works. They're disciplined enough to start something of their own. So all of these things will definitely help someone in the job market as well. It's not just about looking at social media or content creation as a full-time career, but also looking at it at how it can supplement your 9 to 5 that's already in place.
Great. And another fabulous point, I must say. And you're spot on. Like, even as a startup founder, what I have seen is earlier it used to be the coders who will have their codes on the GitHub, and we will have a look and we'll see, okay, this guy is a good coder. Nowadays, I've seen for the marketing, the young folks tend to have their folio. And so I love this fact that how you said that when you're creating content, it can lead you to multiple directions. So even if it may not mean that you want to do it full time as a career, it can help you to differentiate yourself in finding the next best opportunity for yourself.
Yeah. In fact, at that edtech startup that I was working at, there was this intern that we had who volunteered to do a podcast on our YouTube channel, and she said, I will handle everything, but just help me with the editing. And so I said, cool. So she ended up producing this entire 10-episode series where she spoke to multiple parents about what they want for their kids, etc. And she was able to present this to her college during the college application process. So that immensely helped her, because they were like, okay, you take initiative, you're confident, and it seems like you're really interested in this. So that really helped her with her admission process. So even now, like what you're doing, this isn't your full-time job, right? But this is something you're interested in. And you've learned so many things along the way about podcast, production, setup, camera, etc., which you never know how it's going to help you in your professional life as well going forward, right?
That's right. That's right. Fabulous. Lovely chatting with you, Satshya. Thank you so much for this engaging and inspirational conversation. Wish you all the best, and I hope to see more and more of the Singapore flavor in your content.
Thank you so much for having me. This is a lovely conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks everyone for watching the episode. I really enjoyed this discussion being a digital content creator. What I found the most insightful was the 3C framework that Satshya shared. That you need to be confident to build the content. You need to be creative to think of the ways how you illustrate and how you showcase that content. And last but the most important one, you need to be consistent in delivering that content at a certain frequency so that your audience can predict when are they going to expect the next set of content. I hope you guys enjoyed the conversation as well. See you soon. Goodbye.